Let me show you where you can find frequencies in Workday. So if you go into Workday and search for maintain frequency, this is where you'll find all the frequencies that you have in Workday. Some of these frequencies are Workday delivered. Some of them you can create as many frequencies as you want as per the requirement. So let me take a quick screenshot of this. Okay. So if you look at the frequencies over here, you can see there is something called as there is annual frequency, you have bi-weekly, you have daily. Okay, and this is the name of the frequency, annual frequency. This is the name. So the same thing is showing here, and this is a delivered frequency. This is Workday delivered. Now, how does Workday know like annual meaning once in a year or daily meaning 365 days in a year? It is based on something called as an annualization factor. So you can see the annualization factor for annual is 1. The annualization factor for bi-weekly is 26. The annualization factor for hourly is 2080. So this way, Workday knows that how many times it has to repeat in a year. So always frequency is going to be calculated in a yearly basis. So in a year, how many times? So let's say you want to come up with a custom frequency, then you have to first understand what should be the annualization factor. So always you have to ask in a year how many times that particular frequency, how many times it has to repeat. If it has to repeat 30 times, then that will be the annualization factor for that particular frequency. So based on some of the delivered frequencies, like for example monthly, meaning it is 12 times in a year, so you can see the annualization factor is 12. So this way Workday knows what are some of the how to use these frequencies in the compensation. So this, you can, if you define a frequency of a compensation plan as monthly, that means Workday is going to repeat that compensation assignment, or Workday is going to repeat that employee is going to get that particular compensation 12 times in a year, because it is a monthly frequency. If you put it as quarterly, meaning it will be 4 times in a year. So that is how the annualization factor is determined for a frequency in Workday. Okay, a pretty easy one. The next one was currency. This will automatically be available. So per country, whenever you create a compensation plan per country, you also have to specify what is the currency of that particular compensation plan. The pay rate will be either salaried or it will be hourly. You can see the pay rate type configured on the job profiles. If I go to Workday and open any random job profile, if I go to Logan's work profile and look at what is the job profile she is using, so vice president, if I go to pay here, you can see there is an option to maintain the pay rate type. If I edit this particular job profile now, I can specify what is the pay rate for this one. You can see there is pay rate here. So you can specify for, let's say, United States. The pay rate type is, let's say, salaried. Okay. So this way you can specifically mention that, for a specific country, if an employee uh, is assigned to a job profile from a specific country, for that specific country, you can mention the pay rate type for a specific type of. If the employee is going to be from US, then the pay rate type should be salaried. But the employee is from a different country, maybe Canada, then the pay rate type should be hourly. If you have such scenario, you can definitely configure that, especially in Workday, or at the time of creating the position. And when you are hiring the employee, you can specify the pay rate for that particular position. So if I go to Logan's position, I go to her position and look at the pay rate mentioned here, you can see it is salaried. So you can mention it on the job profile. You can configure that on the job profile, but if you have not configured that on the job profile, when you are creating a position in Workday, so when you create a position, you will also be using a job profile for creating the position. At that time, you will be entering the pay rate type for the position as a part of position restrictions. So you can also mention this position restriction when you are creating the position, what should be the pay rate type. So depending upon if you are maintaining salaried as a pay rate type, that will automatically do some automatic assignments at the time of assignment of the compensation for a worker. Next is compensation element. Anyone remembers from yesterday's conversation what is the compensation element in Workday?
Base pay.
Okay, I mean, I know, yeah, okay, good. Base pay is a comp element, but what exactly does comp element do?
It is like a bridge between payroll and compensation.
Right, right. So compensation element is like a link or bridge between comp and payroll. Now, why do you need this kind of a, I mean, why do we need exactly a link between comp and payroll? Why can't we just, so whatever compensation is assigned to the worker, can we not pay it? So that is exactly the reason why we have comp element. We don't want, we want to provide a flexibility. So Workday want to provide a flexibility where you can also, maybe you have 10 compensation plans and an employee is assigned all the 10 compensation plans. However, from these 10 compensation plans, the employer only want to make payments for 5 of them, and rest 5 of them are just for representation purpose. Suppose in that particular case, you can use comp element to only define. So what you'll do is you will only link these 5 comp elements with payroll, and you will not link these with payroll. So only the payment will happen for 5 of them, and this will not happen. And that is why we have this comp element. It is to link Workday with payroll. Additionally, Workday, usually most of the customers of Workday use third-party payroll systems like ADP payroll or Ramco payroll. Okay, there are a lot of payroll processing companies, and these companies use Workday. A lot of Workday customers use these companies for processing their payroll. So it will depend from how. So since these companies are using a third-party system, you need a way to link Workday's employees' compensation in Workday with payroll. So only that way the third-party system know what should be the payment that has to be made. So the comp element will help you in sending that specific detail of data. Let us dive deeper into how the comp element works in Workday. Let us see how we can create a compensation element in Workday. If I go and search for maintain comp elements, so whenever I say comp, I'm meaning compensation. So you can see maintain compensation elements here. So you can see that there are about 32 compensation elements configured by default in this particular tenant. So there are 32 comp elements that are used by maybe 32 plans or maybe less than plans. So that is another thing you need to understand. You can, let's say there is a comp element like XYZ. Let us suppose XYZ is a comp element. You have comp plan 1, comp plan 2, comp plan 3. All the 3 compensation plans can use the same compensation element, or all 3 compensation plans can use their own comp element. There is no restriction as such in Workday, but there can only be one comp element, either this or this one. But you can create your own specific custom compensation element and use it for in your compensation plan. All right, so let us create one comp element. Let me call it maybe I'm going to call this particular comp element as GMS, and I'm not going to give any other details over here. I can just click OK, and that's how you can create your own compensation element. Now this particular comp element will be available anytime when you are creating a compensation plan. You can select this as a comp element for your comp plan. Additionally, I also mentioned yesterday that there is one comp element that is delivered by Workday, and it is called as base pay. So base pay is a delivered compensation element in Workday, and you have something called as compensation element groups in Workday. So comp element group is nothing but it's a group of compensation elements. So you can see that you can also maintain comp element groups this way: maintain compensation element groups. So this is where you'll maintain the comp element groups, and as of now we only have one single comp element group called standard base pay, and standard base pay is one of the delivered compensation element groups in Workday. And this compensation element group has base pay, include base pay, and apprentice pay. So there are two compensation elements that are part of this particular comp element group. You can add as many comp elements over here. I can also add my GMS comp element. I'm not going to be adding GMS. I'll explain you why I'm not adding it, and then we will add it and see how will the behavior look like. All right. So that is about comp element and comp element groups. Now let us create a simple salary plan in Workday. And that's why I said I'm not going to add GMS over here.
Right.
We will add it later. So some some companies, what they do, mostly people will use only one comp element group called standard base pay, and there is a reason, and they will add the comp elements that they create, custom comp elements that they create into this particular group. I'll explain you why exactly that is.
Sure.
All right, for now just understand that you have a comp element, you also have a comp element group which is delivered by Workday, that is called as standard base pay. So I'm going to create a salary plan. I can use any date. I'm just using 01/01/1900 as a effective date of the salary plan. The name of the salary plan, I'm going to give it as GMS salary plan. What is the plan eligibility? So this plan eligibility will determine who should be eligible for this particular compensation plan. So I'm going to say all employees who are from India. So I'll say country is India. So I already have a delivered rule that says country is India. So basically all employees, I'm also going to say GMS India salary plan. So this way it's more easier to define it. So GMS India salary plan is only available for employees who are in India. I want to apply FT percentage, and here you can say GMS. So you can see your own comp element, but you can also use any other comp element. But the only caveat here is it's a single select. You cannot use multiple comp elements as default comp element. You can just use a single compensation element. So for India salary plan, instead of GMS, I'm just going to say base pay. And I'll tell you later why I'm choosing base pay for salary plan. So I just created GMS India salary plan. You can see all the compensation plans in this particular report. So compensation plans is a report that you have to execute. Go to compensation plans here, and if you click OK, and if you look at the comp plans, salary plans here, you can see GMS India salary plan. This is the salary plan for we just created, and you can see the details of the salary plan, like what is the name of the salary plan, what is the compensation element. You can see some of the other salary plan, like general salary plan also uses the same comp element as base pay. However, there is no restrictions over here. You can choose your own custom compensation element. For instance, over here we have international pay as a comp element, we have severance ongoing as the comp element. So there is no hard and fast rule that you should always use base pay for salary. It is again up to you, but there is a specific type of behavior that Workday has when you use base pay as a comp element, and that is one of the reasons that I used base pay. And what exactly that behavior is, that we will discuss when we talk about the compensation basis in Workday. All right. Okay, so we have seen the salary plan. I just created one salary plan for India, GMS India salary plan, and countries India. You can also create hourly plans. So these salary plans are for employees whose pay rate is salary. However, you can also create that as an additional rule over here. So let us edit this one and also make sure that we create that kind of a distinction here. So 01011900. I'll just create my own compensation eligibility rule. So this particular rule is called as a compensation eligibility rule. So I'll just create a comp eligibility rule. Let me open the new tab. So here search for create comp eligibility rule. So you can see create compensation eligibility rule. I will say GMS India salaried as the eligibility rule name. And here I will say country I'll say country is India, and I would also query and pay rate is salaried. So both country is India and pay rate is salaried. So if I go and add this here now, GMS India salaried, you will see GMS India salaried as one of the eligibility rule. Okay, now we have created one compensation plan for salary employees. Let us create one for hourly employees. So you have a comp plan called as hourly plan as well. So it's very simple. Salaried plans are assigned to salaried employees, and hourly plan is assigned to hourly employees. So these are some of the fields that are available for hourly plan. Let us create an hourly plan. So how do you create an hourly plan in Workday? Create hourly plan. I'm entering the same effective date. So here I'm going to say GMS India hourly. I want to create a new compensation eligibility rule, but I would like to use it as a copy of this. I just have to change this to hourly. So I'll say create compensation eligibility rule. And Workday has a neat feature where you can copy the eligibility rule. So I'm just going to provide copy from condition rule, GMS India salaried, and it will automatically add the contents of this particular rule here. So here I'll say GMS India hourly, and I would only change this from salary to hourly. So I'll just go here and select hourly, remove salaried, and then we have GMS India hourly rule. I'm going to be using the same base pay as a comp element. Now you might be observing when we created a salary plan, we did not see any space for amount or currency or frequency. But when we are configuring an hourly plan, you are seeing some additional options such as uh, currency, amount, and frequency. So why exactly is that? So let us just go through those elements as well. So in hourly plan, they will let you configure these additional elements like the compensation, what is the amount of the hourly plan, what is the currency, and what is the frequency. Now the reason, and we also have something called as a minimum wage over here. So why exactly do we have these details? Okay. In the amount section, you can define what is the hourly amount. So you can define, like, let's say if I'm going to give 50 here and say USD, Workday knows that any employee who is assigned this particular hourly plan, GMS in India hourly plan. So if since it is India, I'm going to say INR and I'll say 1,500 INR. Okay. So per hour, that employee whomsoever is assigned that particular hourly plan will be paid 1,500 rupees per hour as a payment. So if the employee has worked, let's say 150 hours in a month, that employee will be paid 150 into 1,500. Whatever is the value, that is what the employee will be paid. Okay. Now you have something called as a frequency. So this is what will determine the rate of payment. So if most of the times when it is an hourly plan, you would define it as hourly frequency. Okay, so 1,500, 150 hours into 1,500. That is going to be paid to the worker. If I select minimum wage, now some of the countries, especially countries like USA, they do have a concept of statutory wages. This is called as a minimum wage. Any employer who employs a worker will have to pay like a minimum wage of XXX amount. I don't know what exactly is the minimum wage right now. I think it is maybe 15 or 13 or $15 something. So that is like the minimum wage that you have to give an employee. You cannot hire an employee for less than $15 in US. So that is one of the policies that they have. So if you want to enforce this particular policy in Workday, we can mention it over here. So if I select minimum wage as yes over here this way, what happens is when an employee is assigned for in this particular case, if an employee is assigned GMS India hourly plan, you can enter any value, but it should not be less than 1,500. It can be 1,500 or more than 1,500. But if you give less than 1,500, Workday is going to say an error because you have selected minimum wage. If you have not selected minimum wage here, then you can provide the employee like 1,400 or 1,200 or 1,000 as salary wage. There is no restriction. But if you select minimum wage and enter an amount over here, that means you will have to pay the employee at least this amount as payment, and Workday will not accept anything less than that particular amount. Does it make sense? All right. So I'm going to say 1,500. I'll say currency is INR. All right. So I have entered these details. You might be seeing I'm just not selecting exclude from merit. I'm not selecting. This is part of advanced comp. So I don't want to get into the discussion of how the merit cycle works. So I'm just leaving it as it is. I'm not touching it. So you don't have to make any changes over here. Just leave it as it is. So now we have created two types of compensation plans. One is a salary plan and one is a hourly plan. So you can see there is GMS in the hourly plan. The next is called a unit salary plan. Now, unit salary plan is something that I have never used until now, but I'll explain you the concept. So the concept here is if you want to be paid in if you want to pay someone in terms of units processed. For example, let's say there are let's say this is a shoe manufacturing factory. So you have Workday has implemented for a factory that manufactures shoes, and you want to pay the employees based on number of shoes they make. Suppose you want to only pay the employees based on the number of shoes that they make. Then you can configure a unit salary plan. Now you might be getting a question in your mind. Who is counting an employee, how many shoes they have processed in a particular day? This is something that you cannot track within Workday. You have to track manually. So if there are 3 employees like this, you will have to manually track the number of shoes they have processed within in a particular day or in a particular week or a month. So let's say this employee has processed um, 100 shoes. This employee has processed 130 shoes. This employee has processed only 70 shoes. Okay, now you mention the unit salary plan in such a way that you will define the per unit salary. If I open this one, you can see that this is a unit salary plan, and here you can define your own unit. So you see there is each as one of the unit. You can also create your own units here. So there is a task called as maintain units of measure. So you can define your own specific units over here. So I can say shoes, and then I can mention it as, okay, this is a quantity, and if we, and these are some of the codes. Other if it's not important you maintain this, but if you want to maintain the code, like um, for shoes, for length you have a code like len, breadth, b width, wd. Okay, that the way, if you want to maintain those specific codes, you can maintain those codes. If you don't have a code for shoes, we don't have any global code for shoes, right? So just a unit of measure. So this is something like custom that you can maintain. I'm not going to be adding anything as such, but it's just an understanding for you that, hey, you can maintain, like, for every shoe, per shoe amount, maybe 30 USD. So what happens is, at the end of the day, at the time of payment, you will have to load these units for the employee using an EIB. So let's say there are 100 employees. You have to count for each employee how many units of shoes they have processed. Then you will load an EIB into Workday, and then the unit salary plan will pick that particular number from the employee's profile, and it will pay, multiply it with per unit amount. I have never seen any actual use case other than with the use case that I'm explaining here. Even when you go to Workday certification, they will use one of the similar use case. I think they will use, my person used, the person who trained me used the concept of processing bananas. But apart from this particular use case or this particular story, I have never seen anyone using a unit salary plan ever in my career. So that's about it. I don't know if anyone uses a unit salary plan at all, for, or maybe there is no specific use case for that, or for a customer to use a unit salary plan. But we do have that feature in Workday. So I'm not going to specifically dwell upon configuring a unit salary plan. I just wanted to explain you the concept of unit salary plan. Let's move on to the next type of comp plan called as allowance plans. Until now, it is clear, right? Whatever we discuss, you're getting your understanding how these compensation plans are configured. Now let us move into allowance plan. So what exactly is an allowance? Anyone can guess? So any compensation or any payment that is made to the employee that is exclusive of salary. So apart from salary, apart from the base pay, so I can say apart from base pay of the worker, or basic pay, or apart from base salary of the worker, any kind of payment that you make to the employee on a recurring basis. So it can be, there should be some kind of a recurrence. Either it might be once a year, or 12 times a year, or maybe 52 times a year. It depends, but there should be a recurrence. It should not be like a one time. It's not a one time activity. It will be a recurring activity, but it can be maybe once a year, or maybe 12 times a year, or maybe um, 52 times in a year. And that kind of compensation plan is called as an allowance plan. So something that is not apart from your base salary, any kind of recurring payments that you pay to the employee would all come under allowance plan. All right. There are three types of allowance plans in Workday. One is amount based. Okay, so you have amount based allowance, you have percentage based allowance, or you have unit based allowance plans in Workday. So let us see what is a unit, what is a percentage based, what is an amount based, and what is a unit based. Now, what are some of the examples of allowance plan? If you, some companies provide something called as transport allowance. Some companies provide house rental allowance called as HRA. Some companies do provide something like mobile allowance. You can reimburse for mobile and internet. Okay, so there can be different types of allowance, housing allowance. So different companies will have different types of allowance plans for different countries, and all those you can configure in Workday. So there are three ways you can configure. You can configure it as an amount-based allowance plan, you can configure it as a percentage-based allowance plan, or you can configure it as a unit-based allowance plan. Let us first look at how to configure an amount-based allowance plan. So you can see create allowance plan here. You'll enter the effective date for the allowance plan, and you can see the amount based plan. So if I select, if I want to create an amount based plan, there is something also called as reimbursable. We are not going to discuss uh, the reimbursable allowance plans. We are only be discussing amount, percentage, and unit based. So I'm going to select amount based plan here, and you can see there are a lot of additional details that you have which you will have to fill. So I'm going to say GMS India. I'm going to be using the same plan eligibility that I use for India. So GMS India salaried. So you can also use the eligibilities. One eligibility rule can be used in multiple places. So it's not mandatory that you can only create one eligibility rule per plan. You can have, you can reuse the eligibilities as many times as you want. Okay, so I just reused it. Said India salaried here. What is the comp element? So I can say the comp element is GMS, or you can create your own compensation element in Workday for this GMS India salary plan. So I can, or GMS India HRA allowance, I can say GMS in HRA. I can create a comp element as GMS HRA and assign. For now, I'm just going to use for all the compensation plans henceforth that I've created, I'm going to use GMS as the comp element. And here you can specify what is the amount for the worker, for amount that you will be assigning for GMS India HRA. You, so anything that is in asterisks. So you can say only comp element as well as the name of the compensation plan is an asterisk, meaning those are the only items that are mandatory um, for you when you are creating an allowance plan in Workday. Uh, Anything else is not mandatory. But let us discuss what are some of these other options that are available. So let me just take a quick screenshot of this. Okay, so you know what is apply FT. We already discussed what is a comp element. You already know what is the amount, currency, and frequency. Now you have something called as no override in Workday. So basically, what exactly is a no override? Suppose if you mention 5,000 over here and say the currency is INR and the frequency is going to be monthly, and if I select no override, when you are assigning the compensation to the worker. So at the time of assignment, you will see that the 5,000 amount that will be assigned, you cannot change it, meaning this will not be editable at all. If it is, if you select the no override as yes. However, if no override is not checked, what you can do is Workday will automatically assign 5,000 because we are mentioning 5,000 over here. So Workday will automatically do an assignment of 5,000. However, I have an option to provide individual target of, let's say, 3,000. I can change that from 5,000 to 3,000, and Workday will allow me to do that change. The reason is I am not restricting anything over here. I am saying no override is not, I'm not checking this box. If I check this box saying that no override is yes, meaning I'll say the plan amounts cannot be overridden. In those cases, you cannot change it. So it's going to be whatever is the assigned value that you define here, only that amount can be paid to the worker. Now you might be seeing here there is something called as allowance plan profiles. We will discuss these allowance plan profiles when we are assigning the allowance plan to the worker. For now, I'm just going to create two allowance plans. I'm not going to define any amount over here. I'm just going to leave it as it is, and you can create allowance plans without specifying the amount or currency. So when you do not specify any allowance amount or allowance currency at the time of assignment, Workday can automatically or Workday can you have a feasibility of selecting the you're providing the amount and currency at the time of assigning those particular components to the worker. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is and say okay. So you have created a GMS India HRA allowance plan. So similarly, how you created an amount based plan, you can also create a percentage based plan in Workday. So I'll say 01/01/1900. I'll say percentage based plan. This time I'll say GMS India. Here again, I'm going to use GMS India salaried. Comp element, I'll use GMS. So here, now you have to also mention the compensation basis. For now, I'm just going to use one of the delivered compensation basis called as total base pay. So I'll just use total base pay, and I'll say 10 percentage of the, all right. Let me take a quick screenshot of this and explain you how this different configurations work. Okay, now when it is a percentage-based plan, you have an option to mention percentage instead of amount. However, you might be noticing there is something called as com basis over here. So you also have to mention the basis, com basis, which is also a mandatory field. Now, what exactly is a compensation basis? I think I just gave you a brief understanding of what exactly comp basis. Comp basis is a total payable amount. So it is a total amount, total value of the compensation plans that are using base pay as the comp element. So total base pay that I'm using here, this it means that all the compensation plans, the total amount of base pay. So let's say you have three compensation plans, all three of them use base pay as the comp element, and you have assigned those three plans to the employee. So for instance, let's say you have three plans. You have a salary plan that is assigned to the worker. Let's say the salary plan is 10,000, and then you have another allowance plan, an amount based allowance plan. Uh, this is 10,000, and then you have another allowance plan, an amount based allowance. So allowance 1, allowance 2. This is also 10,000. Suppose for each, for all three of them, you are using base pay as the comp element. If you are using base pay as the comp element, what will be the total base pay? Total base pay will be 10,000 plus 10,000 plus 10,000. So total base pay will be 30,000. So the comp basis is 30,000 here. Let's suppose for just this one compensation plan, I'm using GMS as the comp element. Now, what will be the total base pay? Total base pay again, total base pay is the sum of the compensation plans. This is a sum of all comp plans that use base pay as a comp element. All right. So now what will happen? I'm using for allowance amount 2, I'm using GMS as the compensation element. So the total base pay will become 10,000 plus 10,000. This will not be taken into calculation because we are using GMS as the comp element. So it will, the total value of total base pay will now become 20,000. Makes sense? So here I'm using base pay. Here I'm using base pay, but here I'm using GMS. So base pay is total base pay is sum of all compensation plans that use base pay as the comp element. How many compensation plans is using base pay? Only salary plan and allowance amount 1. So the value is 20,000. Now we created an additional allowance plan, and this is a percentage based allowance plan. I'm saying 10 percentage of total base pay. Here I'm saying I want 10 percentage. I want 10 percentage of what? Comp basis is total base pay of total base pay. What is total base pay here? In this particular case, based on this definition here, I'm getting a total base pay as 20,000. So for this compensation plan, it will be 10 percentage of 20,000. That is going to be what? 2,000, which will be paid to the employee on a monthly basis as GMS India transport allowance. Does it make sense, or do you want me to explain it again? You want to explain once again? Okay. So let's take your all right. So I think many of you are from India. So I'm going to take an example of India salary. So let's say you have a salary of 10 lakhs. This salary is divided in India terms. This is how the salary is divided. 50% of it will go as your basic pay. And then you have something called as an HRA element. I'm not going to go through the entire, I'm not going to restructure, or I'm not going to show a breakup of this 10 lakhs, but I'm just going to define, or I'm just going to talk about this one small concept. Okay. This entire 10 lakh rupees, that is the salary of the employee in India, as per the government regulations right now, 50%, at least I think it is 50%, or probably it's going to be 50%. 50 percentage of this is going to be basic pay for the employee, and then 50% of basic pay is going to be the HRA. Meaning, what is 50% of basic pay? 50% of the total is basic pay. So what will be the basic pay for the worker? It will be 5 lakh per year will be the basic pay, and HRA is 50% of basic pay. So what is 50% of 5 lakh? 2 lakh 50,000. So total 7 lakh 50,000 will be, so out of 10 lakhs, 7 lakh 50,000 you have already used as basic pay and HRA. Rest will be something like mobile conveyance allowance and blah blah, whatever allowances they will just divide the rest of the amounts in these different components. But this is how it is. Now if you want to configure this in Workday, how would you configure? You will say you will create a salary plan. Okay, so you'll say that basic pay is 50% of, you'll say total base pay. So when you assign 10 lakhs as the total base pay, Workday is going to take 5 lakh. And then for HRA, you want 5 lakh of basic pay. 50% of this 5 lakh, you want to define it as HRA. So you can create a custom compensation basis to define that. So comp basis is basically in this element, percentage based elements plan, that comp basis is a total amount on top of which you are going to calculate a percentage. So 5% of what? That is the compensation basis that you have to define. So in this particular scenario, I'm going to be giving total base pay as the comp basis. So total base pay is sum of all the compensation plans that use base pay as the comp element. If I go to Workday's, all the compensation plans over here, you can see a couple of compensation plans that are using base pay as the comp element. So you have salary. So there is one comp plan that uses salary as base pay. You can see all these three compensation plans use base pay as the comp element. Let's see if we have any allowance plans that use base pay. Or there are none of them use the base pay. So depending upon how many compensation plans are using base pay as a comp element, based on that, you can determine the value. So let's say there is only one salary plan. So the rule is you get you get 10% of your salary as transportation allowance. Suppose at the time of assignment, you say your salary is, let's say, 3 lakhs. Then 10% of your salary as transportation allowance will be 30,000. So that is what exactly we are defining here. We are saying that I want for GMS India transportation allowance, I want 10% of the compensation basis. The comp basis, I'm defining it as total base pay. So I want 10% of the total base pay. Total base pay will always be sum of all the compensation plans that are assigned to a worker that is using base pay as the comp element. So let's take a worker here. I am hiring this particular worker. I'm going to be assigning this worker, let's say, a salary plan. I'm assigning allowance plan 1, allowance plan 2, allowance plan 3, and allowance plan 4. Okay, salary plan, I'm using base pay as the comp element. Here I'm using GMS, 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 and GMS. Now, these three are amount based plans. So I'm going to be defining 10,000 each for each of them. Okay. I'm giving the base pay for the worker as 10,000. Now total, and here I'm going to say 10% of total base pay. Let us suppose this is one of the scenarios where you have assigned the worker these compensation plans, and you have only one of those plans as base pay. So in total, what is the total amount that you are paying the employee? So you are paying 10,000, and each for each of these 10,000. So 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, and 10,000, right? So 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I just added one extra one. So this is base pay. This is using GMS as a complement, right? Now what I have defined, the allowance plan 4 is 10% of total base pay. What is total base pay in this particular scenario? What is the sum of all the compensation plans that is using base pay as the comp element? How many plans are using base pay as the comp element in this scenario? Only one compensation plan is using base pay as the comp element. So the total base pay value is going to be 10,000. Did you understand this? So 10%, allowance plan 4 is 10% of total base pay. So 10% of 10,000 will be 1,000, which will be the allowance plan 4 amount. You understood? Yes, no?
Yes, yes, Nikhil. Got it.
Okay. Now let us say I'm going to make a small change here. I'll say that this particular compensation plan is using base pay as the comp element. Now what will be the total base pay in this scenario? It will become 20,000 because 10,000 plus 10,000. It became 20,000. So the allowance plan amount is now going to be 20,000. Oh, sorry, 2,000, because total base pay has now become 20,000. All right. So that is base pay. This is the delivered comp element. Total base pay. This is delivered comp basis. And you have standard base pay. This is the comp element group. Within this, currently you have base pay configured as the one of the comp elements in this group. Now, what I will do is I'll just go into this particular group and also add GMS as a part of standard base pay. I'm just going to add GMS as well as one of the compensation elements in the standard base pay group. Now, what would happen when you add an additional comp element such as GMS in this? The total base pay will become 1, 2, 3, 4, 40,000. So this is one of the uses of compensation element group, especially if you want if you want to use your own compensation elements like this, but still want to calculate that particular comp element as a part of total base pay. So even though you are not giving base pay as a comp element, you would still like to add this value of this comp element into your total base pay calculation. In those scenarios, what you can do is you can still give your own comp element, but add it as a part of standard base pay. Now this value will become 4,000, 10% of total base pay, because the total base pay is now 40,000. That's how you use this standard base pay comp element group. I will show you, I will demonstrate this in action to you so that it makes more sense. For now, what I'm going to do is I'll just create this allowance plan as GMS India Transport Allowance, total base pay, GMS 10% of monthly salary. Now there are two more details over here. You can see there is a ceiling amount and a ceiling currency. So what exactly is a ceiling amount and ceiling currency? Let's say I'm going to pay 10% of total base pay as an allowance. Okay. Now, if you consider, there might be people with different salary levels. So a person who is earning a total base pay of 40,000, there is another person who is earning a total base pay of 4 lakhs. There might be some other person who is earning a total base pay of, let's say, 9 lakhs in a company. Maybe this person is some kind of an executive guy. So he's earning 9 lakhs. This person is earning 4 lakhs. This guy is only 40,000. So 10% of this is what? This is small, 4,000. But 10% of this is 40,000. 10% of 9 lakh is 90,000. Now, if the company want to cap, saying that I will not pay more than 10,000 rupees as uh, transport allowance. This is the maximum amount. 10,000 rupees is what I want to pay as a maximum. So for this employee is going to get 4,000. This employee, 10% of 4 lakh is 40,000, but the maximum ceiling limit is 10,000. So this employee is going to get only 10,000 per month. Similarly, for this person, 90,000 is the 10% of their total base pay, but the ceiling limit is 10,000. So this employee will also get only 10,000 rupees per month. Suppose there is another employee who is earning 90,000. Okay. What is the 10% of 90,000 is 9,000. So this employee will still get 9,000 because the ceiling amount is 10,000. So it is within the ceiling limit. If some employee is earning 1 lakh, what is 10% of 1 lakh? 10,000. So that employee will still get 10,000. Make sense? So that is ceiling limit and ceiling currency. The reason we have ceiling currency is because one allowance plan might be used by multiple countries. Okay, so there might be multiple so one allowance plan can be used by multiple countries. Maybe that allowance plan is a global allowance plan. So let's say mobile allowance. Let's talk about mobile allowance. Let's take a company like Facebook. Facebook says we will pay you mobile allowance, and Facebook has presence in multiple countries, right? So they are in India, they are in the UK, they are in the US, they are in Canada, they are in Europe. Okay. Now the currency in each of these countries are different. So here it is INR, here it is USD, what is this? UK, right? So here it is GBP, which is pounds. In US it is USD, in Canada it is CAD, this is euro. If I say that all employees are going to get 1,000 INR, for employees in India, this does make sense. But will it make sense for an employee in the US? It will not make sense. 1,000 INR is very less. It does not cover exactly. So you might want to have different amounts for different countries depending upon the country. So if it is an employee from India, you want to pay the employee 1,000 rupees. But if the employee is from UK, you want to pay maybe 30 pounds. If the employee is from US, you want to pay maybe $60. For Canada, maybe $100. For Europe, for Spain, maybe 40 euro. So you want to pay different amounts based on where the employee is from. Okay, so if you want to create this kind of a structure, you have something called as allowance plan profiles in Workday. If I go to our allowance plan, the one that we are creating, you can see there are profiles over here. You can create multiple profiles like this. So I can say that for in this particular scene, here I'm saying it is very specific, like GMS India transportation allowance. So I'm defining it as India. But if it was GMS transportation allowance and all the countries were eligible for such a transport allowance, I can say for India it is 10%, for US it is 7%, for Canada it is 8%, for Spain it is 5%. I can say INR here. Here I can say USD. Here I can say CAD, and here I can say Euro. And in the eligibility rule, I can define the different countries. So here I will say country is India. Here I'll say country is United States of America. Here I'll say country is Canada. And here I'll say country is Spain. And for all of them, I'm going to do total base pay as the comp basis. Now I can also define a ceiling amount here. So I'll say 10,000 is the maximum ceiling amount for India. For US, I can say 200 USD is the maximum. For Canada, I'll say 250 is the maximum, and for uh, Spain, I'll say maybe 50 euros is the maximum amount. That is a ceiling amount. So you can define a ceiling amount, or you need not define a ceiling amount. It will depend. Your employer or your client should be giving you that particular detail. Now here I can change this. Maybe here this is very specific to India. I'm specifically calling out India, so only India employees will be eligible for this. So I also have to change the eligibility rule. So I'm just going to use this for just for the sake of discussion over here. Now, what would happen if you have a configuration like this? So this is how Workday is going to evaluate the eligibility. First, you have a plan level eligibility. You have a plan level eligibility, and then you have a profile level eligibility. All right. If you look here, you have a plan level eligibility, and then you have a profile level eligibility. Now, whenever Workday is going to assign an allowance plan or any compensation plan that has profiles configured, Workday is going to first check if the plan level eligibility satisfies. If it satisfies, then it is going to check, hey, do we have any compensation plan profiles configured for that particular compensation plan? So in our case, we were discussing the housing allowance. So I know that there are 4 profiles configured. Now Workday is going to evaluate, is the employee from India, or if the employee is from US, or if the employee is from Canada, or if the employee is from Spain. Let's say the employee is from India, it is going to take 10% of total base pay which we have defined. However, if the employee is from, let's say, Spain, it is going to say how much have you defined for Spain. We have defined 5%. So if the employee is from Spain, it is going to say, all right, we are going to say 5% of total base pay. So this way, Workday is going to specifically select the profile based on the eligibility rules that you have configured in Workday. Okay, now you might be getting a doubt. All right, what if none of these rules satisfy. So employee is not from India or Canada or UK or Spain. Now what will happen in that particular scenario? In those scenarios, even though employee is eligible for a plan level eligibility, but there are no profiles configured for that employee, it would go to the default value that is maintained here. So elements defaults. If plan profiles does not satisfy, first it will check if the plan eligibility satisfies. If it satisfies, only then it will enter only then it will assign the compensation plan. If the plan eligibility itself does not satisfy, then this particular plan will not be eligible for the worker. So first you have to make sure that the plan level eligibility satisfies. And if you want to use profiles, so if when we use profiles, when it is a global compensation plan that is used by multiple countries, you will check, you will create eligibility rules for each of those profiles, and based on those profiles you will provide the profile level information. So first employee Workday is going to enter the plan level eligibility. It is going to check if the plan satisfies. Then it will check which profile satisfies in the worker. Now, one of the caveats or one of the main things when you are creating profile levels or different profiles in Workdays, all these profiles should be mutually exclusive. So what does mutually exclusive mean? Anyone knows the meaning of mutually exclusive? There should not be any point in time where an employee is eligible for two profiles at the same time. There should not be a case where the employee is eligible for two profiles at the same time. So every profile should be unique. The eligibility rule configuration on each of these plan profiles should be unique in such a way that at no time in or no point in time an employee will be eligible for two of the profiles at the same time. Let us say I just created a rule saying that um, let's say, okay, let me give you an example when the profiles might not be mutually exclusive. So suppose this is a plan such as child allowance plan. Suppose let's say it is a child allowance plan, and the plan level eligibility says, the plan level says that employee has dependents. The employee has dependent children is the plan level eligibility. Now suppose an employee has, there are two employees. One employee has one child, one employee has three child. And then you have profiles defined saying that if the employee has one dependent, then let's say 1,000. If the employee has two children, then 2,000. If the employee has three children, then 3,000. Now, if you define the eligibility rule in such a way that you are specifically checking if employee has one child or two child or three child, then you can easily configure this. So for this employee is one child, so 1,000. This employee is three child, so it is automatically going to be 3,000. But if you configure it in such a way that if employee has one child, 1,000. If employee has more than one child, then 2,000. If employee is more than two child, then 3,000. If you say it as this one as 1 plus, I'm just giving you an example, okay? If this is more than one child or this is more than two child. Now for the very first employee, this will work because employee has only one child, but employee does not have more than one child or more than two child. So this is going to work. However, in this, for this employee, what happens? Employee has one child? No, employee has three childs. Employee has more than one child? Yes, employee has more than one child. Does employee have more than two child? Yes, employee has more than two child because they have three children. Now there are two profiles that are eligible for the worker. So what Workday does is it will not default either this or it will not default this. It will default the plan level value that we maintain. So that is why it is called as allowance default. This is the default value. If none of the profiles satisfy, but the employee is eligible for the plan, this is the default value that will be assigned at the time of compensation assignment for the worker. Of course, we will be creating compensation plans, and then I will show you some of the transactions. I'll execute some of the transactions, and we'll see how those, how these, plan assignments are happening. How is Workday is going to determine which compensation plan is being assigned, which compensation plan is not assigned based on the eligibility. We'll see. We'll create rules that are conflicting. I'll see how the value is assigned for the worker. However, does this make sense to you now? Do you understand the concept of allowance plan profiles? Now, this is not just for percentage-based allowance. I'm just going to cancel this. I'm not going to create it. You can also have this configured for amount-based allowance plans. For example, if I take this allowance plan here, you can see that for this allowance car, you have 4 profiles. So if the country is France, you have a different value. If the country is New Zealand, you have a different value. If the country is Australia, you have a different value. And if the country is United Kingdom, you have a different value. If the country is none of these, you have a default value of 500 US dollars. So based on this configuration, what I understand is maybe this particular client has 5 different countries where they are currently situated. So they are in France, New Zealand, Australia, UK, and US. So what they are doing is at the default level, they are giving 500 USD. So all the employees who are not from none of these countries will always be from the US. So there is again client specific requirement. But if you are a very big global company, you might want to create all of the profiles in the plan profile level itself. So if the plan eligibility satisfies, it will enter here. It is going to check at all the eligibility of each of these profiles. Now you can see this is all amount based plan, unlike the compensation plan that we just reviewed, which was all percentage based. You can provide the exact amount that the compensation plan will be assigned for the worker, the exact amount that will be assigned for this particular comp plan when it is assigned to the employee. Even in the allowance plans, you have this option called as no override or override. If I select no override as yes, at the time when you are assigning a compensation plan, it will not allow you to change the value of the compensation. Okay, if the no override is yes, you will not be able to change the value. If the no override is no, at the time of assignment of the compensation, you still have the ability to modify the values. So let's say the employee is from France, and by default for France, 450 euros will be assigned as a car allowance. If no override is no, you have the ability to change this 450 euros to 300 euros or 100 euros or 50 euros. Basically, Workday is going to allow you to change the values at the time of assignment. However, if I'm going to select no override as yes, you do not have the possibility to change the values at the time of assignment. So that is what these no overrides and override mean. So we have that feasibility over here as well.